Hey, I can hear me on the speaker. I would like to thank Nancy and Kelly for having us here to do this OAMR on the road workshop. This is my third so far this year, and then I think we're going to do it again in September at the conference. So when I was asked to start teaching this class this year, I thought, well, that's nice. I know quite a bit of stuff about parliamentary procedure, so I could put something together. And then I started getting a little guilty because I'm not a real parliamentarian. I'm not a registered. So I got on the National Association of Parliamentarians website and decided, by gosh, I'm going to be a registered parliamentarian. And so you had to pay, and then you had to take this test, and it was 300 questions, and there was 1,200 study questions, and I worked so hard. I was like, okay. And I passed the test, and I got a 98%, and I told Denise, I think, and Tracy, guess what? I'm a registered parliamentarian. And then I quickly figured out that that was just to be a member. So I'm not a registered parliamentarian, but I'm a member, and I'm studying the, 4,000 questions to become registered. So it's a very grueling process. And I'm not studying right now because I'm too busy at work, but I will get it. It's quite the process. I assume you're all mostly city recorders, and are you Scott from Milwaukee? Hi.
Hi.
He said I was going to meet you. Scott works with Pat Duvall, who is one of my dear friends, and she probably told nasty lies about me, so you can go back and, did she?
She said don't believe anything.
Well, don't believe anything she says. We went to PD together. How many of you use Robert's Rules of Order for your parliamentary procedure? Pretty much everybody. No? Yes? How many of you are the parliamentarian at your council meetings or your board meetings? 1, 2. 2 from the same city.
Well, she's on a different meeting.
Oh, you do Parks and Rec. Okay. At our city, Dow's, it's our city attorney. But over the years, we've got this little signal thing, and the mayor looks at him and says, Gene, what do you think about that? And he looks at me and goes, and then I tell him. So he's our official parliamentarian, but everybody kind of just lets me do it anyway. The history of Robert's Rules of Order, this is the most current version, 11th edition. General Henry Robert first published these in 1876, but there's been rules of order for parliaments and governments forever. Thomas Jefferson wrote the Manual of Parliamentary Practice in 1801 for the United States Senate. I don't know I'm sure none of you have read it. But he's just so quotable. Everyone quotes Thomas Jefferson. So one of the things he put in his manual was, no one is to disturb another in his speech by hissing, coughing, or spitting, or speaking or whispering to another. And I thought to myself when I read that, boy, not much changed. Although I've never heard anyone hiss at my council meetings. The purpose of parliamentary law is to the safeguard that protects the individual and the group in their exercise of rights of free speech, free assembly, and freedom to unite in organizations to achieve the common aim. Parliamentary procedure is the tool that helps preserve those rights and helps people work together effectively and help organizations accomplish their purposes. So using parliamentary procedure will help expedite business in your meeting, maintain order, ensure justice for the minority to be heard on all questions, and for the majority to rule the organizations. And it will provide equal treatment for all members, so everyone's equal before the rule of the law. And since I started doing this, I've realized that a lot of people had their questions, of course, are all related to the meeting itself, so I wanted to talk a little bit about meetings in general. Ineffective meetings, I've done a class on this several years ago. They're just a drain on time, energy, enthusiasm for you as a staff person, or if you're a committee member and you have to sit through a meeting. It can just be so difficult. So by using the parliamentary procedure the best that you can, not everyone's going to follow every single letter of it, it will really help keep the meeting effective and more productive. Some of the main meeting problems are being off subject, no decisions get made, there's no purpose for the meeting, they're too long, there's a lack of control, or the meeting starts late, the time is wasted during the meeting, poor preparation before the meeting, information overload, certain individuals might monopolize the discussion, and then there are interruptions from within the board itself or from the audience. So all of those things, if you have your parliamentary procedure in place and you have a chair or whoever's your presiding officer using parliamentary procedure and using it correctly and not as a weapon but as a tool, then your meetings will go much more smoothly. Most of you, I know there's some commission members here. How many? Are you on commissions, committees? 1, 2. So mostly I'm speaking to city recorders, but I don't want to exclude you. So if you're the city recorder, you may not be able to control the meeting, but you can help it run more smoothly. You can help your presiding officer and your board and commission members. So you put the agendas out so you can have that kind of control to make sure that they're not too heavily, there's not too many big things on it for business, and knowing parliamentary procedure. I forgot to tell you, if you have any questions, just yap them out. I won't gavel you down. The roles for parliamentary procedure is the presiding officer, and then there's the rest of the boards. So the role of the presiding officer is to open the meeting, call it to order, announce the business on the agenda, recognize the members that are entitled to the floor, state and put to a vote the questions, enforce the rules, and then expedite business. This is always kind of a tough one because I think if you're the presiding officer, even though your role is to make the meeting run smoothly, you're engaged in whatever that conversation is. And it's so difficult, I think, to step back from that. I've got a mayor who's really good at it right now, but to be able to engage in the conversation, get your opinions out there too, because you're a working member of the board, and then to step back and say, okay, now we need to get back to procedure and do this and this and this. Really tough job for your presiding officers. Then that presiding officer decides all the questions of order, so whatever motions are out on the floor. Respond to inquiries of the members, and then adjourn the meeting. That's their job. If you have your little handouts in front of you, there's the first couple of pages are improving discussions. This is one of the tools that I would give my mayor or your presiding officer, whatever commissions you serve on. And keep in mind, whatever you put before your mayor to help them have a more successful meeting, you want the same thing for you or whoever's serving as your parliamentarian. So if this is in front of your mayor, you want it. If this is in front of your mayor, you want it in front of you. That's how you can help them the best. Other thing I have, which I'm going to give you all a gift later. How many years ago? 15? Marjorie Price did a class for us on parliamentary procedure for OAMR and gave us these little cards, and I'm going to give you all one today. That's the 13 ranking motions. So each motion tells you how it's ranked, whether it's debatable, whether it needs a second, what vote is required. It's just the handiest little thing in the world. So anything, I also give my mayor and keep for me our council rules. I don't know if everyone has city council rules or commission rules, but those are just one more tool that's right in front of them so they can flip to it when the meeting gets out of control and say, no. And you can back them up because you have the same information. So this little tool, this is some of my stuff, some of other people's stuff from other classes. You can take it and add your own comments so you know your board and commission. So you know your mayor or you know your chair. So whatever you think will help them to keep moving the meeting along, then you can just write all over it. Mine has notes all over it. This is a quiet crowd. My last one, we were yipping away. So to open a discussion, which is never a problem at my city, everyone has something to say pretty much. But sometimes it's a touchy subject and people are a little sensitive. They don't really want to be the first one to say something. So your mayor or presiding officer could say, so what do you think the general problem is? I mean, these are just little things for them to kind of get the conversation started for your group. Then to broaden participation, there's a couple of little things in there. If you are the presiding officer and you know you have a member on your commission or your city council that is quiet or shy or they just feel bullied, so they don't want to say anything, as the chair, it's your job to include them, to pull them in, to protect their rights. So this is broad participation, so the overtalkers have to be quiet and give everyone else a turn. So your chair could say, well, Councilor Smith, what do you think about, or does anyone else have something to say? And then to limit participation, which is right below, is kind of the same thing. You're getting your overtalkers to shush a little bit so everyone gets to be included in the process. It's really important. You don't want to have a decision made and only know what two people think. That's just bad business. And then to focus the discussion when it goes off track, which happens a little bit, there's a few suggestions there. And once you just read through them, these are just ideas. So you can just change them or whatever to fit your group. Could we refocus our attention on this issue? And then they say whatever the motion is that's on the floor. And then to help the group move forward, if they get stuck or everyone's you can kind of sense that there's going to be a consensus one way or another, but no one's moving forward, then there's a few suggestions on how to get moving forward again. Do we want to get more information? Do we want to send this to a committee? Do we want staff to bring us back something? What do we want them to bring us back? You know, just to kind of, either there's going to be a decision or you're going to postpone it or something. So these will help kind of figure that out. Yes?
Is the best place to utilize these mostly like in a work session?
Oh no, we use them in regular meetings. If you have a motion on the floor and a second, and then you're having discussion, instead of having discussion, then right before you vote, you get your motion, which is how a lot of people do it. That discussion can just become intense sometimes, or you're so focused on resolving whatever the issue is that you just get lost in it and you forget, oh, we have to vote on this. We have to get a decision. We have to move. No?
Well, no, I'm agree.
Keep talking.
No. Well, I'm just like, I mean, in our work sessions, I just feel like sometimes maybe they wander, but they're not trying to reach a decision. They're just trying to reach a consensus because they can't vote in the work session.
Oh, I see.
So, like, keeping them moving towards some.
So I think these would still pertain. I think what if your issue's stalling out, and you may not be voting, but you need to reach a point where you're going to say, okay, we're going to ask for more information, or we're going to bring this to council as an action item or a public hearing or whatever. You can still use these to help your group get where they need to go. Mm-hmm. And then just a little section on lending continuity to a discussion. Get everyone to recap what they think is happening or what they think they know or what they heard, just so that you make sure everyone understands the same thing before it gets voted on. So those are just some little helpful hints on that. Sometimes it's helpful to have a signal with your mayor. So I don't know if I sit at the end of our dais at our meetings, and of course our mayor's in the center, so I have a good line of vision with him. Some people sit right next to him, which I would like to do, because then I could just Yeah. So this mayor that I have now, he's very, very good. I don't have to give him my evil eye or anything. But my last mayor wouldn't look at me because he didn't want the evil eye that Pat taught me. And so, if you have a signal, even if it's just if you have something little tug your ear or something that works to get their attention, that's helpful. So you can kind of just let them know gently. And if that doesn't work, I just raise my hand because sometimes everyone's just engaged and they've blown over something that needed to be done. So I just raise my hand and keep it up and wait for my turn to be called. But it's nice if you have some kind of little thing you can do. I got this gift from my city manager. He's going to regret it. It's a little duck. He collects those little rubber duckies. But it's a tape measure, like for sewing. So you can pull it out and snap it, and it zips back in. I was like, ooh, I'm going to take that to council meetings. Then when the mayor's not listening, I'll be just like, reel it in. I haven't had the nerve to do it yet, but I might. That would be funny. So the role of the rest of the board or the city council, attend the meetings, be on time. It's so important that you're not the reason that meeting is going to be late. Understand the rules of procedure so they also know whatever the council or commission rules are or what parliamentary procedure that you're using for them, that they address all their remarks through the chair or the mayor. So whatever the question is that they're debating, you are not having a conversation or getting angry or getting upset and talking about things that may not even be the subject anymore because it's emotional. All remarks go through the chair or the mayor. So whatever you want to say, you tell the mayor. He has to recognize you. Then it's not your turn anymore, and then you can recognize her, and then she can address her remarks through you. So that chairperson is where everything ends, and the chair gives that because the chair recognizes you. It's inappropriate for the commissions or the councils to just start talking without being recognized. Use parliamentary knowledge constructively instead of trying to obstruct questions. Everybody knows, I'm sure, I call for the question, which isn't even really a motion. If you wanted to cut off debate, you could say, I call the previous question. But cutting off debate just because you're sick and tired of talking about it isn't necessarily the best way to be a good board member. It's rude, is what most people consider it. So and some people misuse it. Some people just think that you have to say that before you can vote, that's how you end a discussion. So you can very nicely take those people aside and explain to them, you don't have to do that. When it's time to vote, the mayor will ask for the vote, and you don't have to call for the question and make people gasp, because that's what I do. Every time someone does that, I'm like, what? It's like so moved. Really? Another role of the board is to make sure that they are familiar with the issues, that you have gotten them their agenda packet materials and plenty of time for them to read it. They have read it. They know how to introduce a motion or to make a second or to have a debate on whatever that issue is. That's their important work. They need to know that, and they need to be ready to introduce the motion or have a good, healthy debate about it. Okay, now we're going to talk about the types of motions. I'm going to hand these cards out to you. If I don't have enough, if anyone misses one, if you'll give me your name, I'll send them to you. Thank you so much. Yep. Most motions are approved by a majority vote. The ones that you'll see on that card that require a 2/3 vote is because it's a matter that would affect the rights of the assembly or the person. like limiting debate or extending debate or suspending the rules, calling for the previous question. Oh, thank you. Great. One brings them back, one takes. So the first type of motion is the main motion, which is the lowest ranking motion, but it's how you bring the business to the assembly. So I move, if you want to play, I brought presents. So if anyone wants to be motion makers or parliamentarians or chairs, I have presents. And I also have candy because I know this is the most boring subject in the world to people, except for me. Have some candy. We might need it. Look at this candle. Do you want to play? And flowers. No. Yes, we can't have anyone falling asleep in the morning class. You can fall asleep. Tracy's, you won't fall asleep because hers is more fun. There we go. So the main motion, I move to approve an agreement or approve a lease or a rate increase or some project. That's the main motion. Subsidiary motions are a motion that could be applied to another motion for the purpose of modifying, delaying, postponing, or disposing of a motion. So if you had a main motion on the floor, a subsidiary motion would be to amend it, to postpone it, to refer it to a committee, something that changes it from the original motion.
What's lay on the table?
Lay on the table is a high-ranking motion, and what it is it's the difference between lay on the table and postpone. So if you have a motion on the floor and something else on the agenda is very urgent or needs to be taken care of, this happened to us at Monday. We didn't have quite the right information, so we needed to make copies. So we laid that subject on the table, and then we moved to the next item. Then we got the information, so it came back. Then we removed it from the table. Lay on the table is always at the same meeting. Postpone is a future meeting. Postpone indefinitely is kill. Okay, so
when they want to address, like sometimes we need to address the general business item before we have the public hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So they can lay that item on the table.
Mm-hmm. If it's already on the table. If you're just going to skip over it on the agenda, then you're just going to change the order of your agenda. But for us, we had an issue that was it was already on the table. And then we realized that the people didn't bring all the information that the council needed to make their decision. So while we were gathering that up and making copies, we laid it on the table, took up the next item, and then we removed it from the table and addressed it, all at the same meeting. Privileged motions have no relation to the pending question, but they're urgent or they're important and they're entitled to immediate consideration. So a privileged motion is usually related to the comfort of the body. So if it's 95 degrees and you're going to pass out, and you have to make a motion for a recess, that's a privileged motion. It doesn't have anything to do with the business that's going on, but it's important because you're going to pass out. Terrible. Or you have to go potty. Those are the motions I want to make sometimes. I like a recess. Question of privilege, that's a motion for it's too noisy, there's too much going on in the audience, I can't hear you, or it's too hot, or something to do with your comfort. Then the next class of motions we call incidental motions, which arise out of a pending question or a question that's just been pending. And it relates to the business of the assembly. And most incidental motions are not debatable. It's how, the best way to remember it is how the business is being conducted. So if, for instance, you make a motion for a division of the question, then maybe the motion that's on the floor actually you feel it has two parts and you want to vote on this, but you really don't agree with this. So your motion is how we're going to conduct the business. I move division of the question. I second it. And so then the question gets divided. That's an incidental motion.
So if you have a motion on the floor, if you have a motion on the floor, and then someone makes a motion to divide, then what happens to that? Is there a new motion?
If it gets divided, then you have two new motions to vote on.
So would someone actually state the new motion?
So if they were moving division of question, maybe the motion was to approve a garbage rate and make it effective tomorrow. So then you say, I move division of the question. I want to vote on the rate and the when. Separately. So and then that gets seconded. So that's the new. It's
So
like a
the
split.
division gets seconded, and then the mayor would, when it came time, he would say, now this is the motion
We're voting on
the rate. And everyone would
And
vote.
now this is another motion that's hanging out there.
Okay.
I just want to clarify. So you would vote. So you're voting on the division. So if the division failed, then you would go back to the main motion.
Yes.
So the first vote would be on the division, and then you would, if it
Yes,
passed.
because maybe everyone else doesn't want the division of the
Right.
question.
Right,
So
okay.
then that first motion is still there. It's
Okay.
still out there to be voted on.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if you vote on the first part of the division and it fails, you don't vote on the second motion. It just dies.
Well, I suppose that would depend on the order. I mean, if they're not going to do the rate increase, there's no point in voting on when they're going to do it. So then,
So can you just let it die?
yeah, it would just die. I'm guessing by the time it got to that point, the chair would already know that we were going to do the rate. We just weren't in agreement of when. Usually that's why a division of a question comes up, because people are like, yeah, we want to do that, but it's tied to this and we don't like this. So that's kind of the reason I think that people would use division.
Division is not debatable, right?
I don't think it is.
So,
Let me look.
I mean, they make the motion and it's seconded, so then everyone just votes.
Then
I mean,
you-
it's not like you can sit there and, but in making the motion, they can say because of. So
They
can kind
should
of-
say why,
Yes.
and
Okay.
you should already know.
Okay.
The
I
chair
just
should
wanted to
already.
make sure.
Well, I did not bring my glasses. Oh, it doesn't even need a second. And no, it's not debatable.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. I love this. Love that card. So another incidental motion could be a point of order or to suspend the rules. I don't know what, whatever the motion is. We don't have one on the floor that we can use as an example. A restorative motion, there's just a... Oh, go ahead. Just blurt them out.
You have to wait for this.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm looking at division. I'm just
Okay.
trying to get this. So, and it says it doesn't even take. There's no vote even required. It says in order. Okay, so it says a division of assembly. Am I looking at
No,
the right?
division of a question.
Oh, I'm looking at
Down below.
Oh, it does have a.
Yeah.
It does need a vote. Okay,
Division
never
of
mind.
the assembly
Yeah.
for voting, yeah. Okay. Restorative motions bring a question again before the assembly for consideration. So like Nicole was talking earlier about laying something on the table, to restore it, you're removing it from the table and bringing it back. And the reconsider motion, maybe something was decided and at the next meeting someone wants to reconsider it. That's a restorative emotion. They bring it back.
Even if it was already voted on?
Reconsider is a little bit difficult. It can only be done at the next meeting, not after that. And it has to be, that motion has to be made by someone who voted on the prevailing side, whether that was a for or against. So if a motion failed,
So let me give you
someone
an
who
example.
voted in the noes would have to be the one to say, I want to reconsider this.
Okay, so let's take the medical marijuana stuff, for instance.
Okay?
So we had a split vote, and it had to do with the date of the moratorium. And then the state extended that date to May whatever. And they wanted to move that date further. Could they have just reconsidered that motion
The whole motion? What was their motion?
to put the moratorium in place on with a sunset date of December 31st or whatever? And then the state extended it to May 15th, and they wanted to move it to May 15th.
But that would have been sometime after. That wouldn't have been.
That was at the next meeting.
It was at the next
Yeah.
when they changed it.
Yeah.
So they could have done that. They could have done a reconsider, or they could probably, because the state law changed, they probably could have come back and said, due to this law, we want to reconsider, or we want a new motion to
Do that.
extend it, because that's a different.
I mean, they
That's
brought
not
it
just
back as
like I
new
already
business
thought that,
again.
and I'm not sure I want to do that anymore. It's the law changed.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so how a motion should progress. Was there any other questions on those types of motions? No. The member rises and addresses the presiding officer, which never happens at our city council. No one rises. They usually don't even raise their hand, but the member gets recognized by the presiding officer. Then the member proposes a motion. So they say, I move that, whatever their motion is. If someone says, I don't know how you all do your agendas, but a lot of on our agendas, the way that they're written, or there's a proposed motion in our staff report, it can lend itself to people saying so moved. So moved is not a motion. Okay? You have to say what you're moving. So you have to say, I move to increase the garbage rates effective January 1st. That's another one that makes me gasp. I'll tell you where it really makes me gasp, because this is my pet peeve on earth. At OAMR meetings, the business meetings, someone will stand up and go, so moved. I'm like, you're city recorders. What are you thinking? So that is not a motion, and the chairs do not accept that as a motion.
Our boards and commissions and city council going through this, they are so informal. Like, how do you help them become more?
I think you give them training, and I think you explain to them why it's important. You know, they're the city. They're sitting up at that dais, and they are the city, and they need to behave in a very professional manner and make good decisions, and this will help them. Now,
Well, we give them a binder about that thick, and
Do
I'm pretty
you?
sure they probably go home that night and read it.
I'm sure they do.
Sure they do. Because I know that's in there,
Is
but
it part of their council rules that they practice Robert's rules?
I'm not familiar. I don't know.
You may not have council rules. Not every city does.
Yeah.
We don't have them, and so they don't technically. I mean, they do like a hybrid.
Most places do. No one, I don't think, does it perfectly formally. Our city council operates on a higher level than our boards and commissions, for sure. Our planning commission, because they're kind of quasi-judicial, they seem to be up a little bit higher on the level too. But then when we have commissions like our Historic Landmarks Commission and our Traffic Safety Commission, they tend to be more like, where's the coffee and donuts, and let's chat. You know, it's just a more informal thing. And it's okay. It works for them. They get their business done. You don't want to make it so stiff that they don't want to participate, because they're on that committee because they care about your city and they want to give back. So, but I love rules.
But another thing you might do is it like city council?
Is it your city council or your commissions that are?
Well, our mayor's the worst candidate.
Oh, because
Oh,
I was
he
going to say
is.
you should meet with your mayor and go over the.
Yeah.
I would meet with my mayor, because that just, that's, to me, it's the most important business that's happening in the city at that city council meeting. And I would just sit down with them one-on-one and say, this is so important. And I know that you don't want a decision made where you haven't heard from half of your city council. So if you could use this procedure and make sure that everyone's included or whatever, just pick a thing. Because once you get them to understand why it's important and how much better the meeting will flow, they're going to start picking it up. They will. Yeah.
And it looks more fair
Yeah.
to even people in the audience.
Yeah.
You know.
You
so.
don't want that perception that people are being shut down or other people are running the meeting because they're not controlling it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I could come talk to him. So after the motion is on the floor, another member seconds the motion, and then you would have debate. If there's no second, then of course the motion dies. But the one thing that I don't think people pay attention to is if someone makes a motion and someone else starts talking about it before that second is made, that second no longer matters. If debate starts, the motion is valid and it's on the floor. Okay, so you don't have to freak out about, wait, I didn't get a second, because if it's already being debated, it doesn't matter anymore. But if it's silent and no one seconds it, then it's dead.
So if there's no second, how do you note that in the minutes?
If they're, well,
Or do you just
either
say
way,
it goes into debate? Question went right into debate.
Yep. And then if there was no second and there was no debate, then the motion died for lack of a second. So then after you have that going on, there could be amendments to your motion. Some people like to call them friendly amendments. Hey, do you mind if I just add on $50 to that motion? It's still an amendment. I don't care if we call it friendly or not. It's still an amendment is an amendment. So you should have it seconded. Again, of course, if debate went on, that wouldn't matter. But or if there's unanimous consent. So if you have a motion on the floor and someone else seconds it, and then they say, oh, how about a friendly amendment, and how do you feel about, adding $50 to your suggested motion, and everyone's going, nodding, then your chair or your mayor is going, looks like we have unanimous consent for that amendment. So that's another way it can just be added. That would be an informal, probably how it might work for your council. So then the presiding officer states the motion to the assembly, and at that point sometimes it's called the question or the measure, proposition, but what it is, it's the motion. And at that point is when they should begin discussing and debating the motion. I understand that doesn't usually happen. A lot of people maybe they start by asking a question of staff or something, and then it just kind of goes into debate, and then the motion comes out here later. That happens. It's hard
How do you help
to.
separate that?
I work with just my mayor on things like that. The one mayor I have now, I'm so spoiled, but
They try to turn statements into, they'll look at us and be like, try to turn it into a question,
Yeah.
when really it's deliberation. So what are some tools we can help
So
them
I would
separate that?
I would do training just with the chair or the mayor, and say, this is this counselor or this commission member is asking questions, but really the questions are part of the debate. So if you could coach your commission or your counselors to ask the questions through me, and then if it's a question, I'll let the staff answer it, and if it's debate, I'll let them know that they need to wait. So your chair is in charge. If you have a question of staff, but you don't really have a question, you just want to get your opinion out there. So instead, it happens. It's just part of the process. So if you ask the chair, I'm sorry to make you the chair, but you just look so important, and you're right there. And you didn't go through him, then it's just kind of out there. Staff might answer it, or another city councilor or commissioner might start in, well, this is what I think. But if you go through the chair, then the chair can say, you know, that's not really a question for staff. That sounds like debate, so let's wait till we get the motion on the floor. You know, that's chairperson needs to be in charge. Does that answer your question? You look like you're not quite
No, I'm
with
just,
me.
it just happens so much. And they know they have to ask a question.
Mm-hmm.
So they're just trying to figure out. They'll look at you and they know they're supposed to be asking a question, so they'll be like, and what do you think? Is that a question? Just working towards separating, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So, and that's hard. It's really hard to do. Or even your mayor could say, if there are no questions of staff, they'll entertain a motion and we can debate. So that they're separating out. They're kind of telling their commission or their council, what you're saying is not a question, so wait your
So then
turn.
they start deliberating, and then they have more questions, so I feel like we're bouncing back and forth.
And that can happen. I think that's natural. Does anyone else have that go on? Where your staff kind of gets engaged in the discussion a bit? I look at it as you're helping them. I mean, they're having a debate, and in the middle of the debate, they're like, oh, by the way, when are we going to get that street paved so that we can address this issue? Then the public works director needs to go ahead and respond to that so that they can continue their debate. I just look at it as we're helping them. So the chair, during the debate, should show preference to the person who made the motion. Usually gets the floor first. So if you made the motion, then the mayor should say, you know, what you want. You get to have the floor first if you want it. And then a member who hasn't spoken during the debate should have prior claim over someone who's already had their say. You might want to have your say 3 or 4 times. I do, but 'cause I like to get my point home. But that's an overtalker. So your mayor or your chair should recognize that, and then they should say, "Oh, Susan, do you have something you want to contribute?" So that's part of their job too, is to be inclusive, make sure everyone gets their chance. And Nicole, you've already spoken 2 times, so could you please let Kelly have a turn, and then I'll come back to you. The chair should also, in the same vein, recognize members who hardly ever speak, and the ones who always speak, kind of make them wait a little bit, just to make sure you get the full discussion. And I think the hardest thing is, as a mayor, it would be hard for me is to keep that control and not let all the people around me have side conversations. That's a tough job. We have a really tough job. So when it kind of winds down, we get through all the discussion, then the presiding officer gets ready to take the vote and should always say, is there any further discussion before they take the vote? All in favor, say aye. Even if everyone says aye, the presiding officer should say, all opposed, say no.
I think that's important because it might seem like everyone said
Yes.
aye. Because we also had one that abstained, and the mayor didn't even ask that because he thought, but then they actually spoke up and said. So they should also maybe ask.
They actually, Robert's Rules does not, you don't call for abstentions.
Okay.
Ayes and noes is all.
So what if
It's
they-
assumed if you're abstaining that you're going with the majority, kind of, or that your vote doesn't count at all. And it's one of the reasons why it's inappropriate as a commission or counselor to abstain, because it's your responsibility. You were elected or appointed to that board to participate and to come to those votes. And so when you abstain, it's basically saying, that's not worth my vote. That's kind of the message.
Who did that, and then the city attorney said, no, I'm sorry, you have to vote yes or no. You can't
He forced it?
He did, yeah.
Mm.
Oh.
Well, we
Yeah.
like this one, the person had declared conflict of interest, so they didn't have, and they just sat there and
Sure.
listened. So that's why they were abstaining.
Yeah.
But I think an abstention is it's not counted as a yes. It might count as a no.
It's not
vote.
counted as a no vote either. It's a nothing.
a non-vote.
Right.
But when you have to pass something with 4, let's say, we have to have 4, and so that causes a 3 and 3, then it wouldn't pass.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's more like a no.
It is. It has that effect. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have a question. Our council rules require all members of the council to vote on any issue unless they ask in advance to be abstained from the
Oh,
motion.
wow. That's interesting. That's kind of good. I like that. We had a city councilor who was appointed in midterm, and I swear the first 3-4 meetings, he abstained on everything. And I was getting so exasperated, and finally I just asked him after a minute, I was like, why are you doing that? He said, Julie, I don't have enough information. I'm too new. I don't want to make the wrong vote. I was like, you got to vote. It's your job.
What if, in the event you can't tell from a voice vote, maybe it's 3-3, somebody abstains, but
you can't hear it as the chair.
Can you ask for?
Absolutely. The next thing that you would do would be ask for a show of hands, and you can say at any time that the chair is unclear. I need a show of hands, or I need a rising vote. The next, whatever it takes to get you to be sure what that vote is. We go from, some people do roll call voting. We do not do that where I am, so we would go from, if I can't hear the ayes and nays closely enough, we would go to a show of hands. Yeah.
I have one other thing I was going to throw out. I'm not sure if it's important for other cities, but I know for us, we include in our minutes who made the motion and who seconded.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we get 2 or 3 people who second at the same time, and you're like, who said that? And so I just talked to our mayor and said, could you please verbally acknowledge who made the motion and who seconded? So it was, the motion was made by Councilor X and it was seconded by Councilor, and sometimes she's looking around going, okay,
Who was that?
It was a tie.
Mm-hmm.
And then that way it's accurate in the minutes as well.
That's
and they
excellent.
weren't doing that before, and I'm over there going, I don't want to guess the wrong person.
Someone
And then when
moved
the
and
minutes
14
come out,
people
it's
seconded.
Like, yeah, exactly. So, and she's been great about remembering to do that, and I found that to be really
That is
helpful.
excellent. Our mayor as well will, if a couple of people will do it at the same time, he'll say, it was seconded by Miller. Whoever he hears is who the seconder is, so he'll just say. And that's sometimes in one of my looks, I'm like, I look like my puppy. I didn't get that. Yeah. So then the show of hands, the rising vote. Yes.
So I as I make notes here, I need to talk with Kelly and Nancy. I, in a different situation, my committees involved the city commissioners sitting on the committees. They're granting committees.
Oh, okay.
And so during their meetings, during commission meetings, they do a vote on the screen.
Oh,
and
great.
in my meetings, it's less formal. And it's just a show of hands. It's not even a show of hands.
It's a voice vote.
And so from a parliamentary standpoint, should we be doing a roll call vote?
No.
Okay.
As long as you're comfortable with the vote, with the ayes and the noes. If you're in a position where you're not sure what you heard, or you thought it sounded the same, or then I would say, well, I'd like to take a roll call vote, or I'd like to have hands. Yeah.
Okay.
Just be sure you know as the chair, or if you're recording the meeting and you're not sure, then ask your chair.
Okay.
Our mayor, he just states who the votes were.
Oh, he states their names.
If there's names, he states the names.
Mm-hmm. Back to abstentions too. I know this has happened a couple times in my city council where at the end they'll do the abstention, and then they'll say, oh, I'm abstaining because I have a potential conflict of interest. We try to get them to say that at the get-go before, and they're very good at it, and sometimes they'll even leave the dais and go out and sit in the audience because they want to show that they're removed from that decision making. In a small town, your city councilors are business people and realtors and attorneys. I mean, there's many reasons why they could abstain, but every once in a while that will happen, and they're good about catching it and saying, because this is money to the school district and I work for the school district, or whatever the reason is. It's important to get that on the record. Yeah. Like, I'm not just not voting, I'm not voting for a good reason.
Yeah, I have a couple of things. So one is a committee that involves the heads of all the neighborhood associations in the city. They do abstentions on virtually every vote, and I've never seen that before. And I have to admit, I finally used it when vote for minutes for a meeting I hadn't been at came up. I abstained, but I have no idea why the other people are abstaining. There's nothing obvious.
Do you chair the committee?
No, I don't.
No? I think if it were me, I would ask the chair to find that out. And even cite Robert's rules. I could get you the actual piece of it that says why it's your responsibility to vote, not to.
Yeah. In another context, Watershed Council, there's frequent consensus votes where rather than have an actual vote, just say, since there's no further discussion in the absence of
opposition.
You know, in the interest of consensus, we consider that adopted. How does that sit with Robert's rules?
Oh, you could do unanimous consent or consensus, sure. We tend not to do that at our city council meetings because they're formal meetings, and much of the things that we're adopting are resolutions or ordinances or formal agreements, not just a general decision. So that's more important, I think, to have a formal vote. But,
yeah, it seems to work in that organization because there isn't a lot of discussion. There was one issue a couple of years ago that was actually done as a formal vote, but that's actually quite rare. It doesn't happen every year even. So, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I just wanted to share, we have a planning commissioner that at a recent meeting, he it almost like threw a fit and didn't like the fact that the motion didn't go his way or what he felt it should, and he abstained just because he didn't like the motion. Yeah, it was really unprofessional.
Did anyone speak with him after the meeting?
Not that I'm aware of.
If I were chairing that, I probably would have pulled that person aside after the meeting. You don't want to embarrass people in the middle of meetings, but and just say, you know, I understand that you were upset or, you know, hurt or angry, but your vote is so important. It's probably more appropriate that you had voted no than to abstain, because to abstain says you don't care, and I know you care. Things like that are easy to say one-on-one to people and kind of bring them back into the why they're there. I saw someone. Oh, I thought you were going to speak.
I can.
Okay, so we kind of already went through the different types of voting that came up. Then the presiding officer announces the result of the vote. So the chair should say the motion is carried or the motion is lost. Motion is carried, therefore the rates will increase on January 1st, or the motion is lost, therefore there will be no rate increase. Now, I'm not one to ask for volunteers because I really hate that when that happens in classes I go to. But if you feel inclined to practice and if somebody wants to do some motions and seconds and debates, I'm all up for that. So let me know. Everyone's like, oh, please no. Please no. But I have flower seeds for presents. Save the bees. Okay. I understand. I really hate it myself. All right, let me get out my little sheet here. Part of your handouts that I gave you, the first pages we already talked about, and then the parliamentary procedures page, the next double-sided page is kind of like what I gave you on your card. But I'm telling you, that card is 15 years old and it looks brand new, so they don't give out, and you can take them to every meeting with you. Did you go to Marge's? Yeah. Did you get one? at the back, on the last page, there's just a little page called Effective Use of Motions. It's just kind of a handy little tool also to get in front of your board members and your committee members. That's just like, if you want to do this, this is the kind of motion that you need to do, just to help them move quickly if they need to move quickly. I have no problem slowing down a meeting as their parliamentarian, or even just because I'm the city recorder. If I don't understand something, or I think something's wrong, or someone has a question, let me look, and I'll, it's important. They can wait 30 seconds while you look up an answer for them so that they do everything correctly, or they have all the information they need to make their decision. Maybe they need to take a recess. That happens at our meetings, especially with the city attorney. They'll ask him some question and he'll have to go look, and he doesn't have his legal library at his hands, and so we'll take a recess if the answer comes. That's okay. That's a good meeting. So don't be shy about that. And don't be shy that you can't say something. You can. Although, yeah, some people think that city recorders should just sit there with their head down. But you are an important part of that meeting. Everything you write in those minutes is the history. I mean, my city's over 150 years old, and I look back at those minutes and think how important that was, what they wrote down. That's what you're doing. So you want to get it right. Okay, I already gave you your little cards. So motions in minutes, for those of you who do minutes, some of you don't. That's your responsibility to provide the memory and the history of the meeting. Be neutral in your reporting. Don't editorialize much as you want to. If someone was being a stinker in your meeting, you don't need to point it out. Sometimes I'll actually unpoint it out in my minutes. So. Include proposed or recommended motions in your staff reports. That's very helpful to committees and councils. I think probably most of us do that. What we do, because we don't want our city council to think we're trying to put words in their mouth, is we'll give the recommended motion based on the staff recommendation, and then underneath that we'll give 2 or 3 other motions, because maybe they're just not going to do it. So then they need to have a motion prepared for them that's helps them not do it or change it or do this or do that. So we always try to have at least 2 or 3 alternate motions for them to make. It is perfectly fine for your city councilors or commission members to come to the meeting with their own motions written out. It's an important issue. They've studied it. They know what they want to do. So they bring it and they read it. That seems annoying, but it's perfect because they say exactly what they want to say, and it's on paper. So you don't even have to write anything because you're going to get that. And then you got the motion exactly how they stated it, or they can hand it to the mayor. So when the mayor restates the motion, he states it exactly how they want it stated, because things can, kind of get lost in transition sometimes. You can help them draft it, absolutely. I just think it's so helpful. It makes the business run. And I don't think that it gives a perception of already having made a decision.
Well, they're coming to us with
Right.
their opinion, and they want to know how to best express that.
Right.
Because we don't provide proposed motions in our staff reports.
Oh, you don't?
I wish we did, but we don't. And so sometimes they'll talk to the attorney and he'll help them get what they want accomplished in their motion.
The bad side of not doing that, I think, is that someone can drone on for 20 minutes about a motion, and you don't even know what the heck they said when they're done. It's like,
well,
okay.
Sometimes we provide scripts on how the public hearing should go.
Right.
And I know with the marijuana stuff, it was so convoluted that we made decision trees to help them.
That is excellent.
And so sometimes we provide them with what it should look like so that they have a better understanding. So that's how you can help your council.
Well, it is, and it makes them look smart and professional. They are anyway, but when you get in a heated discussion or an emotional discussion, sometimes you can lose that. So I think anything you can give them as a tool is helpful.
Well, and also if you know anything could potentially be litigated. We have that problem a lot. So I mean, it helps it be clear so that when those cases do come up, they did the best that they could.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Make sure when you're doing your minutes that when you state the motion, it could be a standalone sentence in your minutes. Minutes, everyone does different kinds of minutes. Mine are kind of a combination of summary and he said, she said, because I know my council. I know what they want to, I know when they think they're saying something important that, what they need to see in the minutes. But it should be stated however the mayor put it to vote. So even if the motion was written out and you think it should say this, however the mayor said that motion, that's the motion. Okay, so when the mayor's stating a motion, make sure that it's correct. So if he gets a word wrong from what the counselor said, then that counselor should say, I said red, white, and blue, not pink, purple, and green. Because whenever the mayor restates that motion and that's what it's getting voted on, that's the motion.
None of our meetings do that. Nobody restates the motion.
Oh, they should restate the motion. Otherwise, how do you know what you're voting on? You don't, because it's been...
It's very informal, like I said.
Yeah. That would probably be one thing I would ask them to do. I would say, this conversations can go on for 10, 15 minutes, and if nothing else, the people in the audience might not remember what the motion is. So if you could just restate it right at the time of the vote, then that would be really helpful to me. Make it a favor. That'll work. Yeah.
And don't feel like your council's the only council.
Oh no! Oh no!
Super not.
That's common. Yeah, that's normal. Mm-hmm.
We can all hope, though.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't be afraid to stop the meeting, like I said, and ask a question. Or if you heard something different than what the counselor made the motion and what the mayor said, it's okay for you to raise your hand and say, oh, I just want to clarify. Is this what we're... It's okay to do that. It's better to do it then than to get it in the minutes and then come back to a meeting and get them, well, I said this. No, you didn't. You said that. That's just ick. You don't want to do that.
I'm curious how many people record their meetings.
Audio record?
Audio and or video.
Audio.
Yeah, Oregon City does both.
Mm-hmm.
Just about
Yeah.
everything.
Okay.
I found that out today. I've got this little weird thing on my back.
Because I use that audio recording. I mean,
Do you?
I try not to, but I do use it because...
Well, I think you should. That's a great...
Absolutely,
Mhm.
because you don't want to produce a set of minutes and then bring it to the meeting and have people go, well, that wasn't what I said. And, and we even have people who will say, well, that wasn't what I meant. And that's the hard part.
My
it's like, no,
gosh.
but that wasn't what you said. And we can't change, because of your intention. So I think that it's great we're in an age where we can record things.
Yes.
And same thing with video. I don't usually watch the video. Usually we'll just go back to the audio. But
Yeah.
it's very nice to
Nancy
have those.
was relaying to me today how well the video worked for Oregon City, because there's just no
Yeah.
question. It's
Right. We put ours on TV, and then we also put them on the web, and we have archives of them. And so if someone says, well, that wasn't what I meant, at least they can go back and watch themselves, and they may realize, oh, wait a minute, I guess I wasn't very clear about that. So
I think it's a great
It's
tool.
nice to
I
have,
have to
yeah.
confess that I have been doing it for so many years that I don't listen to my audio ever, unless I get challenged. Because I have to do my minutes the very next day after a council meeting, because my agenda has to go out 2 days after that for the next meeting. Our agendas have to be out 10 days in advance. So it's very, very fresh for me. I know my council. I know what their expectation is. I always make sure I have the motions correct. I've been called on it a couple times, and I'll just say, let me check the recording for you, and I'll get back to you. And then when I get what I meant is, then I just nicely explain, you should probably clarify your intent at the next meeting, and then I'll put that in the minutes for that meeting. Because you just can't do that. You can't say, well, I didn't mean to say that. Well, you can, but...
Yeah, I chair a 7-man advisory committee, and we have not been able to get anyone to volunteer to be the secretary, so we were having city staff review the video to make the minutes.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's difficult. Oh my goodness.
Well,
So someone on the commission should have been elected as secretary? Is that
right, but you have to get someone to agree to run. And if no one agrees to run, what do you do?
Honestly, I think elect him anyway. I think I would ask for funding to hire a meeting staff person to come and take my minutes. I would, personally, because I think you get a better set of minutes if you were there. That's just my opinion. Yeah, that's horrible. Okay. You have a lot of commissions, don't you?
There's a variety, yeah. More than I know about.
The other thing I think that's sometimes tempting is now that we have audio and video, and I know data migration is kind of a scary thing when you think about it, but in a way it almost feels like you would hope that your minutes could be what was legally required, but the minimum. And if anybody really wants to know what happened, here's the audio and video, and to be able to have someone do your minutes in that fashion and say, okay, it's legally required that this was the agenda item, this was the decision, and all the stuff in between, does that really have to be, that extensive? And maybe your city really wants that, but
I think
it's kind of tempting where you say, well, just refer to the recording if you want the details, but we're doing the bare bones that's required by law, and we'll just have to leave the rest to technology.
I think a lot of it is style. And some things you should put in the minutes besides the motion because you want to provide a history of what led up to it. Why did they make that important decision? And if you cut out all the discussion, then I think you lose that. And I think it's very important that you have some history.
Yeah, I agree. I just think it's tempting to
Oh,
want to do that
I know.
when you
Can
feel
believe
that
it
you
would
don't
take
have
you
the
10 minutes to do
resources
your
to do it.
minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Very true. Corrections, minutes, we were just kind of getting to that point. It is never too late to correct minutes. So if something happened 2 years ago and someone says, that's not right, they could be corrected 2 years later, 5 years later, 10 years later.
Okay, so sometimes we have citizens who make public comment and they don't like how their comment was reflected in the minutes. And so we tell them they have to lobby a counselor to make a motion to amend the minutes for them. I don't quite understand that, because then the counselor is trying to clarify what a citizen said. Do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. If I were the counselor, I would probably tell them, no, I'm not going to lobby on your behalf to change the minutes.
We haven't had a counselor do it, but that's what we tell this particular citizen time and time again.
Oh, you have a habitual.
Yeah.
One thing I would suggest is ask them to submit their comments in writing. Have them read it into the record and then give you a copy.
Well, they do submit stuff, but they don't read what they submit.
Oh. Anyone have suggestions for that?
I can tell you what we did if you want. We had this huge debate, and they were going back and forth for months over a set of minutes. And our city attorney said for basic citizen comment, all we're going to say is citizen comment received from and only list their names. So for public hearings, we give detailed information of what they said.
Their
but
testimony.
for general comment, we just list their names of they get comment.
I love that.
Yeah. So our city attorney
So you don't
advised
even
that.
say what the subject matter was, though? Oh,
No.
my goodness. Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know if we could get away with that in
I don't
Dallas.
know, yeah, so it's...
But I love that concept. I mean,
It
because
is
I could
nice.
see saying, Chuck Smith spoke in opposition of increasing
Right.
the transient room tax.
Right, because it was going back and
Period.
forth. Well, I meant this, and then they changed it, and then there was a new council member who
Oh,
was
my
part of that, and they were
goodness.
changing it. It was a mess. So it's really easy for us.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
And we do something like that, although we take it one step, we do say, I'll say so-and-so commented on the room tax. but I won't say what, either for or against. I just say, so they know what he made comments on, but not, I don't in any way
You don't
try to
elaborate.
interpret his
I
That
really
was
like
kind of
that.
I tried to interpret that they were in favor or not in favor.
Okay.
And so now I just write their name and they spoke to this topic. So I learned my lesson.
That's good. You know, that could really help me in my city, because I tend to be more specific. And what happens at our city is, like, someone will speak under audience participation. There was an email going around this week about citizen comment, and they engaged the council, and so then there's this back and forth thing, you know, for a while before they finally say, okay, well, we refer that to staff, and staff will report back. And I feel compelled to put that in my minutes. I do. I don't know why, but I love that idea of just saying, they spoke, they left. I like it. Kind of like that. And it's on video, except for we don't video ours.
Once you get burned, you'll do it that way.
Yeah. Oh, I think I lost my little microphone. All right, so that's about the end of my formal presentation. If you want to share concerns that you have, questions, did I not answer something burning question for you? Yes.
To the topic that you just mentioned about engaging in the audience, as a chair, what's a good way to stop that? I'm the chair of the meeting that Brian was talking about, where we've had abstention problems. Newly elected. I haven't had, newly elected. So I'll deal with the I think we can talk about the abstentions, but the audience participation. If there's a subject that comes up, we'll have people just start spewing from the audience, and so I'm wondering for some tips and suggestions of how to rein that back in.
First thing I would recommend is that you put right on your agenda how many minutes you're going to let them speak.
We do.
So that closes it down. And then what we also do on our agenda is say this may be on a future council agenda for action. So, but what we're saying by saying that is we'll let you introduce your concern, but we're not dealing with it now at this meeting. And so as the chair, you can say thank you for your input. We share your concern. We're going to ask staff to look into this issue, and they'll bring us a report in 2 weeks. And just then they're done. And if they keep rambling on, you can ask them to be seated, and their turn is over. That's okay.
I think a lot of time it occurs during the debate where they then want to intercede in, and so.
Oh, they want to join the debate.
They want to back out in.
Don't let them join the debate.
I just need to shut that down. And then remembering to come through the chair.
It's not to be mean, it's just for order.
Absolutely.
I think if you tell your commission that, you know, this is a great way that we can make our meetings more effective and efficient and get our business done, they're going to be on board with that.
Some of them.
Some of them. Some of them won't, because that's not how they've been doing it. Yeah.
Mayor runs everything like a public hearing. It's a little, anyway. He runs everything like a public hearing, but he gives them, the public, always an opportunity to speak. So that way they have a section that they can speak on that topic, because they don't want to. Our agenda is kind of weird. They can't really address it during citizen comments since it's on the agenda. And so he always gives them an opportunity to speak, even on general business
and
items.
That's their prerogative.
Yeah, and so it helps, I think, with the humming and hawing from the audience, because then everybody feels like they were able to participate, and participation is a big part for our council. So if you give them a chance to speak on the topic and limit it, then that is when they have the chance, instead of just
blurting it out. Oh, I have to tell you about an experience I had Monday night. We have it was a public hearing on putting a lien on someone's property. They were delinquent on their sewer or system development charges, like way delinquent. And so that was emotional. The gentleman was there to testify, and he's giving his testimony and talking about, you know, this is what the ordinance says, and I don't understand why you're doing this to me, and I think that you've calculated the interest wrong. I mean, he was very upset. He doesn't want to lien on his property, and someone in the audience, who just so happens to be media, who thinks he's an expert on everything, said, "That's not fair." And he started to go on, and I went, "Shh." And then I was like, "Darn it, put that finger away, Julie." I was like, "What are you doing? This is a public hearing. You're sitting in the audience with your microphone. No." And but he just got so emotional himself that he couldn't help it. He just blurted it out. And then he goes, I'm sorry, Julie. I didn't mean to do that." And after the meeting, he's walking down the stairs apologizing to people. I felt bad that I did that, but just.
I have a question do you have on your agenda, do you have a place that says citizens' comments for your committee?
We don't, but we allow it. But that is something I'm going to add in as chair.
We do ours at the top. We actually have a form that if you want to speak, you have to fill out.
Oh, yeah, we have that.
And it'll say whether it's on an agenda item or not. And so then you have that, because I always have problems with if their name was some odd name, and then I wouldn't know how to spell it, so now they have to write down their name and everything. But my mayor is good at saying, "Thank you for your comments. We need to get more information on this, and we'll, like Julie said, we'll address it at a later meeting." Or have staff contact, because most of the time it's a staff thing anyway. It's not something that should come to them. But then we always print on the back of our agendas our rules that you have 3 minutes for this, and you know, all that too. So, but our mayor is good at. Someone was a new person to our city and came to the last. It was a budget meeting. And she didn't know, and she ended up not even being in our jurisdiction. But she was asking, she had really good questions, but she kept raising her hand in the middle of the, and so it was interesting, because some people just don't know.
No.
Sometimes it's not it's them that needs to be. And then after the meeting, I went and talked to her and explained to her, and she was really nice about it all.
Yeah,
So.
and you don't want to shut people down. I mean, it's so exciting when public comes to your meetings. It is to me, that just comes because they care instead of a single issue. You don't want to shut them down. You want them to care about their government, what's going on. A lot of places use speaker sheets too. We talked about that this week. We don't do that. We haven't had much luck with it, but it's effective.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on that. Oregon City has a sheet about so big for people to put in their name and where in the meeting their talk applies to, and so on. And that seems to work pretty well. And it's used in a lot of any meeting that happens in this room.
Oh, good. So commissions, everything.
Commissions, some of the subcommittees, and so on.
Good. That's great.
I'm pro speaker form, because if they fill it out, then you know how to follow up with them.
You have their contact and you know how to spell their name.
Makes sense, right?
Also prevents people from wanting to talk in the middle of things and fill out the form first. They can do it after the meeting started, but they have to actually fill out the form.
So you get the form, and then it goes to the presider or the city recorder.
The city staff usually grabs them and then takes them to the provider.
So do they put them in order so that the presider knows when that person hits? Not that one. Sure, Denise.
For our city commission meetings, they go to the city recorder, and then the city recorder, since everything's electronic, we enter them in the order that we receive
that's
them.
perfect.
And so it pops up on their monitors up there, which is really nice.
So
and they
does
can
it
call
link
them.
to the issue?
Well, we enter them in. If it's under citizen comment, then that's where we enter their names in. And if it's under like a general business item or something like that, then that's where we would link their name to. And then the mayor can call them up, and then we time them for the 3 minutes, and then they pop out of the queue. So they'll pop into the queue when it's their turn, and then they'll pop out of the queue. And
that's
excellent. So it's
excellent.
really nice, and I think that most of the boards and committees, it goes to their presiding officer and whoever the staff liaison is.
They know to.
Yeah.
That's great. We don't have that.
I mean, because citizen involvement is so important, and just because they didn't fill out the slip, our mayor gives everybody like ample opportunity. It's kind of awkward. We'll sit there and be like, anybody else? Stare at the audience. But it's like so important, even if they don't fill out the form, because like We have people who never have come, but if they want to participate and they don't know.
And they're scared because they don't know what to do or when to do it.
Or they don't realize that they wanted to participate and sitting there and hearing what other people have had to say. So, I mean, anything you can do to get people involved.
One of the things that I am committed to working on is creating some sort of a really easy, maybe one-page, step-by-step guide for people who want to participate and say, you know, if you want to speak at a city council meeting, you know, here's kind of how we do that. Oh, that's good to know. You know,
Thank
that
you.
you'll get 3 minutes and you can speak on a subject and, you know, the mayor will call you up, and just so that somebody feels like, okay, at least I sort of know what to do, and not just feel like you're sitting out there and being embarrassed when you come
Oh,
up.
look.
Thank you.
Nice.
Perfect.
I
Thank you
want
so
one.
much.
Thank you. Yeah, we're not that formal.
That's good.
Oh, this is nice.
Yep. Oh, you just saved me a lot of work. Now, do you have this in Word?
Yeah. Will it be on my computer when I get back to work?
Just crossed out listen.
If everybody'd like a copy, we can get you a copy of that.
Those are nice, really nice.
It made a difference on our meeting.
I don't even.
I have a question too. I just want to make sure that I understand that a chair or a mayor can direct, if someone comes up with a concern or a question, can help by directing it to whatever it needs to be done with it, like put it on a future agenda item, direct it to staff, whatever that is. There are times, though, that I also feel that people come up just to, like, make a complaint that maybe they've made several times, and we've tried to do the best that we can to the best of our ability and funds and all that to fix the problem, and we're kind of at the point where it's like, I'm not sure there's much more that we can do. It's okay for the chair or the mayor to say, you know, thank you for your concern. You know, I mean, it's okay to not direct it anywhere.
Absolutely.
It's okay just to say, you know, like, thank you. And
yes.
now
and
next
and your
citizen or
mayor
whatever.
probably aware of all the work that's been done and can even speak to that and say, you know, we've tried to resolve your problem. Unfortunately, it's just not something we're capable of doing for you at this time. I'm sorry. What happens, I think, in our city is if someone's dissatisfied with the answer they got, they'll pop up at a council meeting and nobody knows that's coming. It's like a bullet. And so the mayor's not prepared. He doesn't know what 14 other people have already tried to do to help the person because we didn't know they were coming. So, you know, and that's when he'll say, you know, we'll have staff take a look at this and report back to us or work with you. We do have a kind of a chain of command thing within our staff that if someone comes in with a complaint and you can't resolve the issue for them, you take them to your department manager, and if they can't resolve it, they take it to the city manager, and if the city manager can't resolve it, he will help them go to the council. So they might come to the council and our city manager has prepared a staff report basically saying here's their concerns, here's what we think, what do you want us to do? Those are the best ones because there's no sides. You know, we want to help you. It's just not within our authority to help you, so we need to go to council. But they know in advance, and that I think that's the best. Yeah. Some people just don't want to do that. They just want to surprise you.
Well, you just have to let them vent it out.
You have to. Mm-hmm.
They just want to vent.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the council's there. That's why they elected them.
Yep. Any other questions, comments, scenarios, war stories?
I do have something I'm curious about for other cities as well. So we, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago now, installed a 3-minute clock. And it's about maybe a little bit bigger than the size of that speaker in the corner, maybe about the size of the exit sign. And so I'm the person who gets to run the timer. And when they're down to a minute, it's a chime. And then when their time's up, there's kind of another chime. And it's not super loud, but you know, you're aware of it. And we have a citizen participation task force that's been working on things, and they're going to make some recommendations in June. And one of the recommendations is we need to get rid of that timer. Maybe, I think they're going to give us a few of their recommendations, which would be either get rid of the timer, don't time people, just let people speak as long as they want and leave it to the mayor to shut it down, or do like a green, blue, red light toward the dais and have
like a traffic
that, right, like a traffic light. And I just wonder, does anybody have the traffic light? And do you guys like it? Because
Look at all
to
the
me,
hands.
it seems like it would be equally as distracting as a chime.
To the speaker, or
you know?
We have one that we use, and we can chime it or set it to.
We're gonna get
and
it
we've
down.
used it before, but and one goes on the city recorder's dais over here, and then one goes on the speaker table.
Okay. Oh, so they're portable. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not like
portable.
attached or installed.
It's not.
Oh.
And so you just
Cool.
you turn it on to receive, and then you set the time, and then this starts it. The city recorder can start it, and then green, and then yellow, and red. And we can actually just have it where there's no sound, and we've used it for some of our public hearings in the past where we've added the sound, and you can adjust the volume on the sound or whatever.
And where do you put that?
Well, this one goes, typically where we put it is right here, and this is where citizens come up to speak.
Right.
And then this other one is kept at the city's, by the city recorder.
Uh-huh.
And
so she's controlling that.
she controls it. And then also on our monitors here, for the sake of our mayor, it's timed. And so he'll see a little timer on his monitor, and it's viewed up here as well on the big monitor
For the audience to see.
audience.
Okay, that was my question is
So
how
we
does
kinda have
everybody
it
else
as
know?
So
two-
everyone
a two
knows.
system, so everybody knows.
Do you use
Wow.
these for your citizen comments?
We do.
What you
Yes,
don't want
we
to
have
do is
to.
not time it. You don't want to not do that because
Yeah.
the mayor has to shut it down.
Right, it's not
a
fair.
fairness issue,
Right.
So he could let some people talk for 2
Right,
minutes, some people
right.
talk for 5.
And that's why we went to the 3 minutes, is because we thought that gave a level playing field. If you're a nervous person and you're new, or if you're somebody who comes and speaks all the time, you get the same amount of time. It's not, this guy is,
However you time
prominent
it,
in the
do
community.
time it. Don't let them
Yeah,
not time it.
right. Well, and I know our mayor has said, it really makes her job easier to have that timer, because it takes
Because it
her
doesn't
out
have-
of that
yeah, it
equation
doesn't
of
have to be
having
her
to
fault.
interrupt and so, but they did talk about that, so I'd be interested to know where you got that little piece of equipment.
It was here when I got here, so I'll check
Okay.
on that. And
Okay.
if you have the business cards, I'll let you know.
Okay.
We just went through the process of replacing, we have the red, yellow, green. And we had the discussion about whether going to the timer or not, and our mayor thought that the time was distracting, seeing the numbers
The
move.
numbers.
So it's better just to kind of have some idea that the time's moving, but then the red, we got it from a company out of Beaverton called Alzatex. When I did my Google research, it was like the only company out there who did it. It was replacing something from the same system from the same company. Alzatex or ALZ is how it starts, and then Tex is how it ends.
Like Texas or TEC?
TEX, Alzatex, something like that. And it was like $500 for a new.
So
But we
yours
had
is
the
just
debate.
the lights.
Ours is just the lights, and we asked if they want to do that because this company also has the numbers, and there's numbers you can buy elsewhere. But the mayor and our city manager thought the numbers are distracting.
Mm-hmm.
It lets them talk, and then it has a little beep, which is kind of scare people.
Do people get
We didn't
mad
stop
when
beep,
they
but-
do they get cut off, or does their light go red and they just keep talking?
In Kaiser. In Kaiser, we give them 5 minutes. We used to give them 3, and it wasn't quite long enough. So the way ours is set up, ours is called a limit timer, and it's really similar to what Kelly just showed you with the lights. And ours is wireless once it's on the table, and our city manager actually runs it. But so he starts, and at 1 minute left, the yellow light goes on. So it doesn't make a chime or anything. It's just they see the yellow light goes on. A lot of times people will stop like this.
Yeah.
And the mayor, so you have 1 more minute to summarize. And then it goes off, and then she says, I need to cut you off for, fairness to all. But the thing that always happens is a counselor will ask a question, and once the question is asked,
Then it's all
the time's
over.
done. And I've seen it go on for 20 minutes, back and forth, and
We
so it
have
gets to be
that.
kind of a mess. So
Yeah.
the mayor's gotten a little bit better about saying, okay, we'll direct that to staff, or we'll get back to you, or just thank you for your comments. Thank you for coming.
So she doesn't allow the council to start doing the questioning. That's hard. Yeah.
So ours, we don't have counselors asking questions until the person is done. They don't I mean, they're just good that way. They don't
But then they
interrupt.
ask the person the question, and then the
And-
person goes on to another 5 or 10 minute.
Right, and then the mayor's good about saying, okay, thank you. Can we sort of wrap this up, or could you guys talk about this after the meeting? Maybe if you have a specific one-on-one you want to do. But
Oh, good.
I just wondered about the distraction of the light versus the timer, because to me it seems it's distracting no matter what in a sense.
I would
but I
think
understand
so.
the fairness part of it too. 5 minutes, I would freak out if we went to 5 minutes because we get a lot of citizen comment. I mean, a lot. And so it could make our meetings go on for hours and hours because we don't even get to regular business because we've spent, an hour,
Oh,
an
my
hour and 20
word.
minutes listening to public comment about a hot button issue, and we got a lot of hot button issues. So.
Is it something that's already on the agenda that night, or just anything?
Sometimes it is, but it's a report about something, and so later in the meeting we're going to parking districts is a perfect one. A lot of people are not happy about it, and they will come to give their opinion during visitors propositions, and then later in the meeting the committee that's been working on parking districts will provide their report. And so it's not like, usually if we have a public hearing, the mayor will say, okay, you can speak about any topic except the public hearing one, because when we open the public hearing, we'll do it that way. And so if it's not related to a public hearing, people can say what they want to say about it. And if we didn't cut people off at a certain time, I mean, even 3 minutes, sometimes it's like you have a parade of people coming up to speak. So
I think it'll make a difference. You'll want to provide them with costs when they start looking at the difference
Oh,
between
yeah.
a timer and a
Right.
light. Because we just went through this movie in our building, and the cost of the timer was a lot cheaper than the cost of the lights.
Right.
So,
and we've already paid for the timer. It's like
So-
we paid for it, it's installed, and now
yeah,
they
but
may
you don't
change
want
it.
to go spend. It needs to be their decision. If they want to
Right.
spend $700 on lights,
Mhm.
that's a big
Right.
factor. I mean, that was for us. We kept the timer. They don't have to like it, but it was cheap.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
going to be a decision.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they decide, because it is going to be a recommendation to the council, and they're going to have to make up their minds about what they want to do with it, if anything. So I really appreciate knowing about the device with the
I know,
green, yellow,
yeah.
red.
Just bring pictures with you, because I think that will affect their decision.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Thank you.
I have one comment too about the number of citizen comments that you mentioned that you guys have. If they're all related to the same topic, does your chair ever say, oh, we've had,
Yes.
we're good? Okay.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who has something to say other than what's been said, okay.
Exactly, yes, they will do that,
That's-
especially when you know it's a hot button issue. She'll say, okay, I understand a lot of people are here to speak about X, let's talk about that first and let's get it all together. And, and we try to encourage people to submit written comments. I really think that is a great way to go, because then you cannot be misinterpreted. It'll be attached to the minutes, and you can drone on for 38 pages if you want, hopefully not, but you know what I mean. And so we do really encourage people to do the written comment, because then they're not limited at 3 minutes. And a lot of times they'll just come up and say, I have some written comments to submit, and I'm just going to read 2 paragraphs or whatever,
Yeah.
and then they're done. And
They just
that's
want to
great.
say, I support or
and
I
it's
oppose.
awesome for the minutes, because you go spoke from written comments attached, and move on to the next one. So.
Great. Anybody else? If not, I think we're going to have a little early lunch. All right. Thank you so much.
Is
One-
it 1 o'clock?
Whatever you want to do,
Or Tracy could start early.
how long do you want for lunch?
Whoops.
Sorry.